I went to the lesson, right? And then a child appears and I'm like, hi. Like,
Oh,
and nobody said like anything to me.
and here we are. All right, we're rocking and rolling. So, Kiara Ruiz, thank you for sitting down with me and speaking to me today. Um, I am excited to speak to somebody from Chile and somebody from Latin America, especially because so many of my subscribers are Spanish teachers and they're from Latin America. So, first of all, could you just introduce yourself to the people watching, please?
All right, this is so exciting. Okay, so yes, as Brian already introduced me a little, I am Kiara Ruiz. I work as a college professor, but I've also been teaching languages for a few years now. Although this was before the pandemic, so I would go to like somebody's house, like the good old days, and we would have like that presential class, let's say, usually tutoring for like helping a little with their subjects in university, like English subjects, and also like in high school or middle school and things like that. So I've always liked doing that. Then the pandemic hit, and I had a lot of well, my lectures were also online, and it opened a lot of doors because I went to work with universities from other places because I don't have to be living in the place to be teaching in that place. So it was great. And then like a few weeks ago, I discovered iTalki, and I was like, this is great. So yeah.
That's so cool because of all the interviews I've done so far, I think you're like the freshest teacher, only a few weeks in, but that's brilliant. Not only because these interviews aren't just about italki, it's about language teaching in general. So, you teach at a college. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about your college teaching, and how that has affected or has not affected the way you teach on italki.
That is a great question. It has affected a lot, I'd say. I think that just having that experience of teaching for a few years is obviously going to help you a lot, but it's still a different environment. So my subject, it has different names depending on the university and the program that I'm teaching for, but it's like logic, like proper logic, argumentation, debate, critical thinking, those type of realms, let's say. And I also prepare sometimes like the teams of each university so that they can compete internationally in like different settings, and and so I've taught in Spanish in like Spanish colleges, but also in English ones, or like English speaking ones. And yeah, it has been great. I am already acquainted with like the language in both cases, and yeah, so it has been great on that sense. And also a lot of my students here on italki have asked for like those subjects, like if I can teach them a little bit of that. So I am going to add like a specific type of lesson in which we can review those topics, because obviously I have all of the program already, which is just so easy. And I've taught this like so many times, so it's just great. So yeah, like people are very interested in what I do for a living, which I feel like it's a great hook, in a good way. Like they get interest in me as a person, in the subjects, and they're like, yeah, I have had like one lesson with you, 30-minute lesson, but I am going to buy a 20 lesson package because yes, like it has been so great. Like people have been so nice, and just like a great experience overall. And yeah.
Thank you for telling us a little bit more about what it's like teaching at colleges. I couldn't help but notice that in your name it says anthro and archaeology. So I wonder, were those like your kind of majors, or have you taught those before?
No, I'm also studying now, so I am doing a double degree, and it's in archaeology and anthropology. So that is why I have that now. That is from a different meeting that I was on. That's why the name was there, and I forgot to change it. But yeah, so I am teaching that, and sorry, I'm teaching that now. Having that degree right now, and it's great. I feel like the experience as a current student is also very valuable for the way that I teach, because I mean, right, everyone or like a lot of people here have been students, but being a student currently, I think it helps you more. I don't know, for me personally, I get to experience every day like my professors teaching the class in different ways, in different manners, uh, and that just gives me ideas sometimes, like right on the spot, about what can I implement on my lectures, and like it just helps so much. So I'm doing a lot of things, but it's just so worth it. It's so fulfilling to be learning so much at an institution, in my case, which works for me, and be teaching and like in in colleges, but also languages, which is also something that I love. So everywhere, I'm just so happy.
That's fantastic. Yeah, like a lot of the digital tools that I use in my class, I've learned from other teachers, right? So Kahoot or Google Jamboard or Google Docs, it's all come from other teachers. And another thing, even the different ideas of how to make lessons more learner centered. For example, I'm giving these free weekly lessons, group lessons, um, for English students. And one thing I do, I play music at the beginning of each lesson. And I actually made like a playlist where students could put their like recommendations for songs for their DJ. And that is something that my professor did for us. So it's like for anybody who's watching who is a student right now, as Kiara said, that is a resource, like if you're a student, you could kind of look at what your teachers are doing, even if they're teaching other subjects like anthro or archaeology. You could look at what they're doing and you could implement different things and transfer it as a language teacher in certain respects.
Yeah, for sure. I've learned a lot from my professors and also like the professors' assistants. They are even like more creative. They are younger too. Like they are so great. And sometimes they give like classes in which they kind of review the readings, but with a very wild type of example, just so that I can kind of explain this further. We were reviewing like an archaeologist that was writing about like culture and materialism, basically very very basic, and in order to like kind of explain everything that was going on there, she used Daddy Yankee's career to explain every of it. Like it was so good,
No.
all the concepts she did with the discography of Daddy Yankee. It
Whoa,
was so good.
that is so good. That is so
Yes,
good. How did she do that? Wow,
she
that's so
was amazing. Yeah, she was
yeah.
super funny. Everybody was loving it. And also it was very like content wise, it was like super full of a lot of heavy concepts that you could understand just looking at the discography of the man. Like it was so great. So
Speaking of
now,
the
oh sorry, yeah.
yeah, no, 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 no. Speaking of Daddy Yankee, I think I saw that he officially retired like last week or something like that. Yeah, okay, that just came to my mind. But sorry, continue on, Kiara.
No, no, precisely. Like that is why she chose like that topic, because it was like contingent. Like it was literally something that was going on that a lot of like young people, especially here in South America, are like very
Mm,
aware of. So she was like, I can use this to do that. And so now I kind of also do the same thing with other topics that I know more about. So I usually ask my students like, what type of movies do they like, what type of shows, blah blah blah, and I binge watch everything. So I give a lot of examples with things like that, with shows that maybe we both watch, or like even sometimes like I just ask them, and for next lesson I already have their movies watched. So it's like that. Like it's super fun for me too. Like it's something that I count not as really like my work, like watching those things, because I generally will do that in my free time. So it just everything serves, and like for example, if someone is watching here and was like thinking how they could do it, it's like literally just try to find some common ground, not necessarily movies or shows, it could be anything, and then try to like explain certain concepts with that, in case you're doing a lesson in which that is like the main focus. If someone is trying to look for business kind of vocabulary, which is something that I've done too, you could do that in a specific setting in which you're both acquainted, like someone that likes sports then or and wants to like dedicate their life to that, you can like have like role play, quote unquote, in which you interchange like dialogues with that type of like framework. I don't know how to phrase it, but kind of like it's so fun and so like rewarding for them too.
That is awesome. Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could use different like memes and GIFs and different like look at what's new kind of. I want to come back to what you were talking about teachers' assistants versus professors and how they're younger and sometimes they probably take more chances, sometimes they probably experiment a little bit more, but not always actually. And I just want to talk about teaching like pedagogical fossilization, you know, like when teachers get stuck in their ways, because this is something that I haven't spoken about yet in this interview series. And you seem like you have a really good kind of background with teaching it, and you seem very like you really have a lot of insight on teaching as well, especially given the different contexts you've taught in. So I just like to know, um, have you picked up on any kind of bad habits that teachers have kept, like teachers who have gone stuck in their ways? And are there any specific habits that you are trying to avoid as hopefully a long-term teacher?
Yes. Oh, that is so great. Because I've thought about that so much. Oh, because of like teaching traumas with my professors. Sometimes, a lot of professors are so like caught up in their theories or like things like that. Even like with uh when teaching languages, I'm kind of learning German now. I'm so bad, so do not ask me to say anything in German because I'm so bad. But I've I've had taking classes in German, and like even when they're reviewing grammar, when I ask like the reasoning for what something is like that, and they usually know because they've studied like linguistics or something, they go into this like realm in which they explain a lot, and it's sometimes very useful, but sometimes it's not because it's not really what I asked. So they know a lot about a topic and they're very passionate about that, and that's great. But something that I try to be very mindful of is that I am here for my student. I'm here for them. And so I try to kind of be very conscious about like what's going to make them learn and understand more. Am I making any sense? Like I
Yeah.
try not to lose myself that much into other things that are like tangents from the topic that the person is asking. I try to first answer the question, and if they want to know more, or if I know that the student would like to know more, then I can talk about something else and like go on that tangent, because a lot of students like that. Is very like circumstantial, of course, but you know what I mean. But first, like primarily answer the question and like serve them as much as I can, because that's what we're here for. We are getting paid basically to expand their knowledge into what they want to learn, their
Mm.
specific needs. So I try to just be very mindful about that, and not only when teaching languages, but like anything at all, just serve them as much as I can in the best way possible, because the word serve in English kind of sounds weird, but in Spanish makes total sense. I swear.
Oh yeah, yeah. No. That makes sense. That makes sense as well. That transfers. Um, Coming back to what you teach in college classes, that's like my dream come true, because I began teaching at a college a couple months ago in January. It was scary at the beginning because I had been teaching on iTalki for 2 years, and I did a practicum at a college at a university last year, but still the training wheels were off. I have had my own two college level classes. It's focused on reading and writing. One of them is more one of them is actually for ESL students, and the other one is for native speaker students. And it's really weird how they decipher, how they indicate who is who. But anyway, that's a different topic for a different day. Yeah, you know, I try to integrate discursive markers and rhetorical devices and critical thinking into my lessons as well. It's really interesting. I'm also taking my master's degree, and one of the big topics in my master's degree in applied linguistics is critical pedagogy, and being critical about how we teach and paying attention to power, paying attention to identity. And this is something that has not come up in the last few interviews, and I just want to pick your brain about it in case if I don't get the opportunity again, because it seems to be up your alley. So I'd like to just talk about being critical, like having kind of, integrating critical thinking, for example, or these different sociological kind of topics into classes. Because, it's really hard to teach your students to be critical, but at the same time, to not use your own biases of what you think should be taught, of what you're critical. It's like we have to be critical of the critical. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I wonder, are there any ways that you have tried to be critical of the critical? And are there any kind of ways that you try to teach your students to be maybe critical of different things, but by not trying to impose your own biases on your students?
For sure. Oh, there are so many ways, and it's very tricky to begin because it's very circumstantial, I think. And that is kind of actually point one. Like it is very circumstantial. It depends really on the type of students that you have, from where they are. Like on a side note, especially on iTalki, you are going to be um like dealing with so many different people from so many different cultures, and it is a challenge. Also, a lot of people ask for your political beliefs, and that can be
Mm,
tricky too, but that's another topic. The thing is that yes, you have to take in a like in consideration the type of people that you're teaching, about being critical of the critical and not like pushing your own like opinions and like not be biased. I am also very circumstantial in the way that I like approach every single circumstance. Let me explain. So, especially like on my field, like if I'm literally just teaching critical thinking and logic and argumentation, I feel like what's the best to do, and this applies to like teaching languages too. Um, Kind of very responding directly to what they're saying, not necessarily on principle. What does that mean? If I have a student that is making a specific argument or is kind of structuring a specific argument that has a specific like set of rules and blah blah blah, I directly like try to contradict what they're saying, not with what I think, but with what is contradict to what they're saying, which is sounds like I'm repeating myself, but it's really not. So if they have the same opinion that I have, I do not just like immediately say yes, you're correct. That is specifically no. I try to like play devil's advocate a little, and that way well, this is actually also like scientifically proven that if you do that, the fact that they're kind of on the spot, kind of figuring out and processing how to respond to that, it sticks better. Like the concepts stick better to them because they actually have to use the concepts in order to like keep flooring their argument. And not only that, but also the fact that you're addressing them specifically makes them so that there's like a little bit of pressure, but a healthy pressure. So sorry, pressure in which they like have to actually respond on the spot, and they're responding to a professor that actually knows the whole theory. So the fact that they're like a little forced to use those concepts and to use that knowledge makes them like have the concepts like way more integrated in their minds, because they are forever or like for a long time gonna remember that time in which they were like back and forth with the professor talking about a specific topic that they were like processing and still like kind of figuring out and just telling about it, right? So everything that is like just being very focused on what they're saying and like just be very insistent with so that they get really out the concepts is it's just I feel like one of the best ways. And that way I'm not saying like my opinion regarding what you're saying, but just using the concepts, use being very like objective with the material that we're using, and just using that. Like I'm not Kiara, like the person that likes writing and painting. I am Kiara Ruiz, the professor that is teaching a specific subject and that is
ah,
talking in this specific setting like that we've
mhm.
established, and this is what we're working with. These are the rules, let's say.
Yeah, and that goes into your identity as well, and like how your identity is perceived and negotiated. That's brilliant. One of the reasons why I brought this up is because recently, first of all, being critical, this is one thing I do from a cultural perspective. When I'm teaching the language, I'm trying not to to be Canadian, right? Like obviously if people have questions about that, I'll answer them, but I'm trying not to like teach people how to be it's hard to explain because like obviously there are different constructs we use in both English and Spanish to be more polite or to be more formal, right? And that could come in handy, especially in the workplace. You were talking about business English before, right? Or business language in general. However, I'm trying not to be too prescriptive and too pushy with how like with trying to dictate to my students how to be how to be a polite or a good boy or a good girl, right? Especially, it sounds very demeaning and belittling, and like you're looking down on the student. So, my point is that I have to walk the line and I have to try to find a place where people could be perceived as respectful, but I'm not trying to make them into a caricature of a Canadian and try to push my culture on them, right? All of this has come full circle, Kieta, with teaching online. Because for me, it's like teaching Zoom etiquette, for example. Like, for example, I see you drinking water, I'm drinking water, that's okay. But is it okay for people to be eating as teachers? Like for me, this is a no-no, right? But it might not be for other teachers, for example, right? So going through all of these rules all over again, but this time looking at it from a virtual perspective, it's something that we need to be critical of. And this could even be, for example, your students, if you're teaching mothers and they have children in the background. This is, these are some different situations that a lot of teachers in real life don't have to deal with in a college setting, but you will have to deal with in the virtual world. Because in one respect, you could say you're in the classroom, there should be total silence. But in another respect, you are in your child's space, right? Like you're bringing the classroom into their space, and they are just trying to say, "Hi, mommy, how are you doing?" or something like that. Like, I want your attention. So it's like it's hard for the mother to invade their space and then to be like, you have to be quiet because I'm in an English lesson and my teacher wants full silence, right? So all of this like etiquette and how to be respectful and how to be polite is like a re-emergence, and it really makes us critical, and we have to be critical as teachers, I find.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think what you're saying is makes perfect sense, and it just comes back also with very just being circumstantial. Like it depends on the specific situation. Not everyone what's it's going to be it's going to have the same problem. Problem like. I am usually just very understanding with everyone. Actually, like in university, sometimes it happens that mothers are like, I am in like lactancy period. Like I have to feed my baby, and both like online and like anywhere else I am very understanding, like, yeah, you can bring your child, like I of course I understand that. And like things, for example, like eating or things, like I don't really mind if other people do it. I've never really had a student like anywhere that has been eating in a like individual class. It happens with class like in general, but I don't really mind. I won't do it just because I'm speaking more constantly, so no, I won't do that.
No.
But drinking water, I feel like is not, I don't want to say universally, but like in a lot of the people that I've talked with, is like it's okay because you're talking a lot, and so you kind of need hydration. But no, I completely agree with that. And even with the same topic about like being respectful, when well, for like when you're trying to teach others how to speak, I also always kind of ask in which environment they want to speak English or Spanish, because
Mm,
that depends a lot on how you talk, right? Even like if you're teaching someone and they're like, oh, I want to go to the US, all right, which state? Like that is very important, right? Like it's not the same going to New York to going to California. Like it's just not. So and like here in Latin America is the same. Like so many different mannerisms that mean so many different things. It's wild. So that like when they want to learn any language, or well, any of the two languages that I teach, I always ask them, all right, but where specifically do you want to go to, or like with people from where do you want to interact with, because that is what's going to depend, and that's what I teach. Like, for example, if here in Chile certain words have a certain like connotation, or like it hits a certain way, but they want to go to another place in which the word doesn't really mean the same, I'm gonna obviously gonna teach them the in the setting that they want to be in, not my one. So like not my own. So of course, it's what you said before, like trying to not push your biases, and just
Mm,
try to, again, just play in the like ground that we've drawn, like in
mm.
the with the objective concepts of the specific settings that we've agreed on, but not my personal as a person setting, nor yours necessarily. Like like the student of course also has a say in this, and I always ask, but I also have a say in the sense of like there are things that I think that are very important to me in a setting that I don't want to discuss. Like if someone asks me, and this has happened, very personal questions like about, I don't know, love life or things like that, I think that's inappropriate. So I set my rules, and I'm like, I think that is not a topic that I will want to discuss, for many reasons. Not only because it trespasses my role here as a teacher, as a tutor, but also because it may affect the way that we interact, because the fact that you're even asking this question is inappropriate. Like well,
Yeah,
like it doesn't really matter the intentions behind it; they're all not great.
yeah, yeah.
So that is also something that I would advise, especially like people are just starting out, to also be mindful of your needs. Like, yes, we're here to serve our students and to help them with whatever they might need, but you also, like, of course, are worthy of respect and everything that you like, an environment that feels comfortable to you as well.
Amen. Amen. That's awesome. I actually I wrote this down earlier. I don't know why. You're just like hitting on so many things, but I haven't asked. One time somebody commented on one of my videos and said, "Ryan, actually as a student, I want to know, could you make a video about things that teachers should know that students could do better, for so that like teachers feel more comfortable, for example." So my question for you, Kieta, it's not only with regards to students, but just in general, have there been any situations on italki so far, hopefully not too many, where you felt uncomfortable?
Not really. Well, I haven't had like many lessons, so not really. There like, yeah, like a few things happened, let's say, that were not great, but it wasn't like too far. For example, I had this person that booked like literally 5 classes, 1 hour long each, and we never talked, right? And I was like, okay, great. They really must have liked my video or my descriptions. I'm amazing. I'm doing a great job. Yeah, yeah. But then I messaged them. Sorry. Then I messaged them, and I was like the typical questions that I usually do. Like, is it okay if I ask a few questions before our lesson so that we like have a better baseline, so that I can kind of target like the concepts that we're gonna touch in the lesson, like whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they never responded. And I was like, all right. And also they they booked like a lesson for like the next week. So it was like a long period of time for them to respond, and then they responded. And the same day that was our lesson, I was like messaging them again, and they didn't respond either. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna hope that they do show up to the lesson. And it was like I went to their profile, and it was a normal profile that had never had, sorry, other lessons. So I was like, all right. I went to the lesson, right, and then a child appears, and I'm like, hi, like,
Oh,
and nobody said like anything to me. And it was the name of this person was not the same name of the account, so obviously it was a parent that kind of said, oh yeah, for my child. I'm not gonna tell you, but it is for my child. And I have no problem teaching like people that are underage, but I do know a lot of teachers that are not comfortable with that, or they don't feel qualified to do that, and it's perfectly okay. And which is why it's something that you should talk about before. I'm still teaching this person because they're amazing. But yeah, that is something that has happened, and that it was not great, but it wasn't like obviously too bad. But it could happen. Like if it was someone that
Mhm.
if it was a tutor or a teacher that was not comfortable with that, that would have been like awful. And it was also like an hour long class, and also like other class booked, and like you know uh, that and one of my students, we were talking. Well, he likes like a conversational type of class, and he asks a lot about like politics and things like that, which I have no problem with. Um, and at the end of the class, I was like, yeah, no, like he asked if I had had like bad experiences with talking. I was like, no, everything has been great. What about you? Like, have you had like also super good experiences? And he was like, well, and it was the end of the class. So then he sent me on well the chat, right? Like afterwards, he was like, oh, this is what happened, by the way, in case you're interested. And it was the worst thing that I've ever seen on iTalki. Not from him to the teacher, but the other way around. The teacher was absolutely awful to the student. It was very inappropriate. So yeah, super bad. The teacher doesn't teach anymore there, so that's great. Uh, but yeah, like I haven't had any really bad experiences, but one of my students did, and
Oh,
it was like really bad. When I tell you it's really bad, it's really bad.
yeah.
So
Okay.
so yes, like of course these things happen, but apparently what I've been seeing is that it's very uncommon. But of course it's still worth noting that it
Yeah.
happens.
Well, look at you putting yourself like empathizing. You literally just put yourself. I asked you, have you ever felt uncomfortable? And you literally like just said, well, I've had a student who's felt uncomfortable and a hypothetical, like a situation where people hypothetically could feel uncomfortable. So it's really good that in terms of, the common things that we need to be aware of, such as like teacher burnout and different problems that we might run into. It's like having a mentality like yours and awareness of what could happen, of what could be problematic for other people. And then you could start to think, okay, well, that's that person's experience. This might be problematic for me. So I hope people who are watching this could kind of think, um, how would I feel if I just showed up and there was a kid propped up in front of me with absolutely no preparation in advance, right? So these are great insights. Speaking of people uh, booking a package with you without ever meeting you beforehand, that does happen, and that's happened with me a lot. I think one of the reasons for me is because I have a lot of referrals. So I teach a lot of like husband and wives or girlfriends and boyfriends, and it's like really, or girlfriends and girlfriends actually, and it's really good for me to have these kind of networks of people who really trust me, but another thing, it could be a social media following. And this is something I've been dying to ask you ever since we started talking, because all I needed was this microphone you have in front of you, and your video on YouTube, on iTalki is so darn good. I wanted to ask, do you have any like social media channels, or no, you don't? You
Ah,
don't have a
all right,
podcast?
let me explain. This is so bad. So no, but I do have the equipment because all right, so I do have a YouTube channel, but nobody knows about it. So I've never
Oh,
told anybody. I don't have a following. I don't have a problem with saying it. It's also in Spanish, so I don't know how many people are going to understand this. Maybe actually a lot, since this is a language teaching channel. But yeah, no, I haven't taught anybody of the people that I know. So I do have like a few subscribers and a few like hundreds of views of like random people that I don't know. So I have the equipment because I love like filming things. I love explaining topics. It's like very. I explain like science thingies, or I talk about arguments about like certain specific cases, and I make cases and things like that. So I talk a lot about that, but I don't have a following in which I was like, oh yeah, by the way, I have this audience. So if you want to have a lesson with me on iTalki, then you can go. No. I started iTalki like literally like everyone else. I made my profile, I made my video, which I was I did like 3 videos, and I chose one of them. So I don't, I just want to stress how important videos are for your presentation, and also like the scripts and all. And I did all that. I didn't tell anyone that I know either, because yeah, as you have probably guessed, I'm so like shy a little with those type of things. I don't know. So I didn't tell anybody, but it was there. But yeah, thank you for assuming that. That is so nice. Thank you for my video. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you for assuming that Spanish listeners would be watching my channel.
For sure.
And I hope that some of them would be. I've spoken to a couple people already that I do want to make this channel more inclusive to people who are not just teaching English and who are teaching other languages, and hopefully people who only speak other languages, namely Spanish, because a lot of people, you know, I learned Spanish on iTalki, and I know that it's really important for people to be able to access some of this information, right? Okay, great. Like, I'll be with you chatting for 3 hours if we don't wrap it up. So I think we've chatted about most of the important things. We chatted about a lot of stuff that I didn't even expect to talk about. Thank you for such an engaging interview. Do you have any last minute things that you would like to say to people who are watching this video?
I just would also like to thank you for the opportunity to talk about the subjects. I don't know any other teachers on iTalki, so this is great. And also, like, if people here that I watch that are watching this and also want to like talk about their experiences or anything, of course you can always like hit me up. I will be very like happy to talk, or maybe if someone wants to ask me. I don't really have any, of course, like experience on iTalki specifically, but I do have another settings, so anything that anyone might need, I am also available. Kind of taking also Ryan's example, in which he has been absolutely amazing and so kind for everything, like the interview, like literally everything. His responses have been great. Well, you or probably already know him better than I do, like just watching all of their videos. So yeah, the fact that he's doing all of this, it speaks so greatly of him, and I just can hope to do the same thing maybe, or like attempt to help the same way that Ryan is helping everybody and like so many people by making the videos, putting in all the time. And so yeah, I just aim to be half of a kind person as you are.
Oh, okay, Kiara, thank you. We'll end it on that note. Great stuff. Thank you so much, Kiara. Excellent.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Take care.
Anyone who wants to book a lesson with Kiara, you teach Spanish and English, is that correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, perfect. So her profile links will be in the box below, and one day she'll have a booming YouTube channel, I'm sure, where she talks about these subjects. So that'll be down there too.
That
All right.
would be amazing.
Okay.
Thank you.